Major themes in the Book of First Chronicles. The Book of First Chronicles presents a theological retelling of Israel's history with a clear pastoral purpose, to remind God's people of who they are, who their God is, and how they are to live in faithful worship before Him. Written to a community seeking renewal after exile, the book emphasizes covenant continuity, godly leadership, reverent worship, and enduring hope grounded in God's promises. First Chronicles offers a vision of Israel shaped by divine faithfulness rather than human failure. A central theme of First Chronicles is God's unwavering faithfulness to His covenant. The book opens with extensive genealogies, tracing Israel's story from Adam through Abraham and David to the post-exilic community. These genealogies are not mere historical records, they affirm continuity and divine purpose. Despite exile, defeat, and disobedience, God's promises have not failed. The repeated emphasis on God's choosing, of Israel, of Jerusalem, and of David, underscores that Israel's identity rests on God's initiative rather than human achievement. The Lord remembers His covenant forever, 1 Chronicles 16 verse 15, assuring His people that their future remains secure in Him. Closely connected to covenant faithfulness is the prominence of the Davidic kingship. David is presented as the ideal king, chosen by God, faithful in heart, and deeply concerned with honoring the Lord. While his sins are largely omitted, his devotion to God's purposes is highlighted, especially his role in uniting the nation and preparing for the construction of the temple. God's covenant with David, that his kingdom would be established forever, forms a theological backbone of the book, 1 Chronicles 17 verse 12. David's reign is portrayed not merely as political success but as a model of leadership rooted in submission to God's will. Another major theme is the centrality of worship, particularly as it relates to the temple. Much of 1 Chronicles is devoted to the organization of priests, Levites, musicians, and gatekeepers, as well as to preparations for the temple's construction. Worship is shown to be at the heart of national life, requiring order, reverence, and joyful praise. David's careful attention to worship demonstrates that honoring God involves both heartfelt devotion and obedience to His instructions. The refrain, "For His mercy endures forever," 1 Chronicles 16 verse 34, reflects a theology of worship grounded in gratitude for God's steadfast love. The book also emphasizes the importance of seeking the Lord through obedience. Kings and leaders are evaluated primarily by whether they sought God and followed His commands. Saul's death is attributed to his unfaithfulness and failure to seek the Lord, 1 Chronicles 10 verses 13 to 14, while David's success is linked to his dependence on God. This theme reinforces the principle that blessing and stability flow from faithfulness, while disobedience leads to loss and judgment. Yet obedience is not portrayed as a means of earning God's favor, but as the appropriate response to His grace and covenant love. Alongside obedience, 1 Chronicles underscores God's holiness and the necessity of approaching Him rightly. The death of Uzzah when the ark is mishandled highlights the seriousness of God's holiness and the danger of disregarding His commands, even with good intentions. David's acknowledgement that the failure occurred because God's instructions were not followed according to the proper order, 1 Chronicles 15 verse 13, teaches that sincere worship must align with God's revealed will. Despite its emphasis on holiness and judgment, the book consistently points to repentance and mercy. David's response to God's judgment after the census reveals a deep trust in God's compassion. "Let me fall into the hand of the Lord, for His mercies are very great," 1 Chronicles 21 verse 13. This balance between justice and mercy reassures God's people that restoration remains possible when they humble themselves before Him. Finally, 1 Chronicles offers a message of hope for restoration. Written for a people rebuilding their lives and worship after exile, the book affirms that God has not abandoned His purposes. The focus on the Davidic line, the temple, and proper worship points forward to renewed fellowship with God. The past is not retold to glorify history, but to inspire faithfulness and confidence in God's ongoing work. In summary, 1 Chronicles presents a vision of God as faithful, holy, and merciful, of leadership as accountable to divine authority, and of worship as central to the life of God's people. It calls readers to remember that their identity and hope rest not in past failures or present circumstances, but in the enduring promises of the Lord who reigns forever.